Hello and welcome to another Friday Night Live Q&A, which is a great platform for you guys. Ask your questions every Friday. I do these 9:30 Eastern Standard Time. We're here to answer questions. I've been doing this a long time, years. So if you're new here, having issues with your aquarium, or just wondering about doing different techniques or different ways to fix certain issues, whatever parameters, whatever it may be, this is a great place for that. And hello, everybody in the chat. Good to see you all in here. Let me go ahead and hop into the live chat before we get started. But hello. Wish I could holler all your guys' names. And y'all know who you are, but look at all the early people. Glad to see y'all in here. Carol Cox, member, gold member. My shipment today, very healthy in a 300-gallon tub. That is awesome. Glad those made it to you safely. Those are some awesome fish you have. And I'm so glad to hear that they're getting 300 gallons because they love their space around. Lady Diane, gold member, or diamond member for quite, and it's been messing things up. So I hope, hold on one second. I want to make sure it ain't trying to do none of that. All right. ADHD Aquatics, thank you so much for the $5 super chat. Really appreciate that. It says, Bebop, Beeboop, what does BDA stand for? You wrote it on my Blue Dream Shrimps bag. So BDA is Blue Dream A-Team. Back in the day, I used to have BDBs as well, which was my Blue Dream B-Team. And then I had the A-Team. And so now they're all pretty much A-Team. I don't really have a B-Team anymore. But that is our old abbreviation for how we organize things. So the way we go about processing things, we usually abbreviate it like that and then put that on the bag. So if you do get one of our orders, that's a good way to tell what your items are. We always put in a packing list too, which helps out. But thank you so much for the support and for the order. Really appreciated and really helpful right now. Trying to get these stands knocked out. It's been crazy this week. I've been trying to push, like, by tomorrow, I'll probably have about 120 plus hours into just getting things done, which is super exciting because I'm trying to get them 80 tanks up. It takes a lot to build those racks and just a lot to process through that. If you see back here, you can actually see quite a bit of it's kind of strung around into the fish room. And just trying to move things around, that's almost the hardest part. But trying to get that knocked out, and with all your guys' help and support, it's been going straight to supplies for that. So thank you for the super chat, for the support, order, and everything. On LRBAquatics.com. All right, ADHD Aquatic says, who runs that Fish Fam Link channel? I know the name of it. Oh, I know who does it. I can't remember right now off the top of my head. ADHD Aquatic says, Lucas, what is the foam stuff called you wrap the shrimp in? That is, I don't know what they technically call that either, like foam wrap. I always bought it off this one place off eBay, and I just constantly go back to the link. So I don't know, just type in foam insulated wrap or something like that. That stuff's good. Works real good. Oh, no. OnlyFins, I think. OnlyFins is the one who runs the Fish Fam Link. The Limite says, my first order from you arrived today. 10 times the yellow neos. They're looking great. Will you be selling bulbites too? The bulbites, I don't know why I can't freaking say that right now. Bulbites. The bulbites. I actually don't have any of those. I remember when they first came out, they're kind of slow breeders. I don't know a whole lot of people who actually breed out the bulbites that aren't getting them from imports. Unless the Garden of Eater may have them. I don't know if he actually breeds many of his out to sell, because they don't breed out a whole lot. Not like Neos do. That's why Neos are always hot sellers. But thank you so much for your order. And those yellows, that line is crazy, crazy awesome line. I think that line slept on. I should probably promote that yellow line more because it's insane how nice I've created that yellow name to be. Or yellow line to be. Haha, Erie first, there's a young deer in Ireland named Lucas. Yeah, I appreciate that, Erie. I remember you saying you were going to do that. Guess after I hit that deer, he went ahead and sponsored some wild deer or something in the name of it. Just kind of, that's just way the universe balances itself. Are y'all getting into aquariums? That's the key to aquariums and with life anyways, is just balance, balance, balance. I know it's not always easy to do, especially when there's so many things to tempt you towards the spectrum of each. Any tips on breeding bettas? So the best thing to do if you're breeding bettas is to keep the water level. You only want a few inches, like that deep at the most. And keep them well fed. Watch out for aggression. The biggest thing would be watch your tank. If you're breeding bettas, make sure you got time to actually watch and see how they behave, because sometimes they can get a bit aggressive. And if they get too aggressive, you want to be able to jump in and save your bettas, because you don't want to have an issue with that, because it just sucks when it happens. Big reason why I don't breed bettas is because sometimes it can be a real pain doing that. And then also keep them warm. If you want a lot of success with them, if you can keep them up around 82, 86 degrees, you can get more success rate than if you're underneath that. They do like that warmth. And I do also got a video on breeding bettas. If you want to go to my breeding playlist, or just type in LRB betta breeding, there's a whole full video of breeding cross ray bettas, which those are, can't really find those very often anymore. And it's a neat video. It's old school video. I wasn't really talking in it much, but it's got like all the visuals and writing on it, and it shows them actually breeding and everything, like everything you need to know about them. Chris Resecker, member for 10 months, says LRBAquariums.com. Will you have some more dwarf neons on the site soon? Thank you, Lucas. So I should actually, if you want to go ahead and email me, I could hook you up. Let me know how many you want, and we can go from there. Well, actually, email Lady LRB at lrbaquatics.orders@gmail.com. That'd be the best way to do it. Right now, it's hard for me to even answer any messages. I've been kind of not even near my phone. I've been painting all day, cutting all day, building all day, and then everything else in between. I've gone full build mode this last week. Probably will be this week too. But yeah, I should have some coming up. Chris, thanks for asking. Appreciate that. And I gotta get them moved out. I've got a couple tanks full of their babies. Okay, Michael Kidd says, hey Lurb, when do you think any of your other Medeca varieties will be ready to offer? It's going to be quite some time, because they're still up and growing right now. And I mean, I've got some golds, but not very many. And then besides that, I mean, I've got a few black ones, but not a whole lot of numbers on ones to be selling. And usually when I've got like a couple groups, I like to keep a few groups behind on things. That way, just in case something happened, who knows, just weird things happen. Not very often that it happens in here, but you just never know. I've always learned to back myself up just in case. And a lot of them are still young right now, but with what I'm doing this week and next week, trying to get these tanks up, it should expedite that quicker because everything's going to start getting organized here. Still a lot of work in front of me to do it, but it's going to be awesome. It's going to be sweet. I can't wait for all this to be done. Cannot wait. Alright, Ronnie says, how can I help a killifish who seems to have a swim bladder issues? He's having a hard time staying horizontal. You know what? This is a little unorthodox, but you can try taking him out for a little while and just kind of hold him out for a little while. That way he can kind of outgas himself. Sometimes that can actually help him when they have that swim bladder issue. Not always, but I have seen it and done it to where that has helped them because it kind of decompresses them. Besides that, the swim bladder issues, it could be hard to tell what's really causing it. I've seen them naturally come back from it. Matter of fact, I got this Epilotes lamontii that lives in the pond that has done that to me and tricked me many times. And I had done nothing and he still be all right. You start freaking out and stressing and freaking him out to an extent, like adding too much medication and stuff like that, destroying his immunity, that can actually cause more problems. So, I mean, and a lot of times you got to be careful when you feed your fish too, due to around when you water change. Sometimes that'll cause swim bladder issues and temporary ones that can also seem like there's a bigger issue that's happening. As far as like if it's internal parasites, I wouldn't say so if there wasn't any issue of like swelling and other things beforehand. A lot of the diagnosis and solution would also come to how or what could have been the issue to cause the swim bladder, because even if it was something genetically, then obviously there's absolutely nothing you can do. But if, say, maybe you overfed him and then you did a water change and then the pressure in his stomach, because you got to think the barometric up and down pressure is going to extend as well, and it can do that. And if it's on a full stomach, then there can just not be enough space for things to be there, and then it just causes issues in them. So you got to think about their bodies on how you would treat a human in space too, kind of, which is wild to think about. Matter of fact, NASA trains in a swimming pool. Ooh, I seen one of the weirdest things they're doing with aquariums right now. I about like posted it up on the channel just to show you guys, but I don't know how real it is. They're trying to grow like human meat into aquariums, which was just messed up beyond belief. But Ronnie, I hope your killifish pushes through, my man. Pelham's Aquatic says, Lucas, which species of killifish would you suggest as a first killifish? I would say really any that seem to be your favorite. Any like fundulopanchex, amphicemians are the easier types, but really they're all fairly easy as long as you know how to keep fish. Nothos types don't live quite as long. There's a few other types that don't live as long either, but if you ever get a chance to get like scriptoamphicemians or chromoamphicemians or any of those really rare ones, rivulus are always fun. Really, there's hard to go wrong with the killifish. I wouldn't say one's more beginner than the other, really. And it can seem that way, but too, because they come from a lot of locale. But when it comes to aquarium keeping, if you can keep fish well and keep them more in an ecosystem and natural setting, then it's much easier to keep. Just remember when it comes to breeding them that they do need softer water for their eggs to hatch. And there's a few ways to breed them out. And there's lots of information on how to breed them out, depending on what type you get. But the one trick, if you're doing the dry method, is wait for their eyes to show on the eggs and then add your soft like RO water or distilled water. Then as soon as they hatch, throw them in an aquarium with whatever water. Wouldn't even matter. It could be hard, soft, or whatever. Preferably not as hard. You can stay towards the softer side, but not too soft. And yes, if you've got a question, always great to use the question marks. Thank God for Lady Diane, always here to remind us. Alright, M&C Aquatic says, Lucas, any tips on growing dwarf tiger lily? So the tiger lilies don't usually stay dwarf. I mean, they'll stay dwarf for a little while, but those things are real tank busters. They get crazy over time. And really, you set them in the tank. You could use sand or whatever. It doesn't really matter. I had an epiphany today that sand or substrate for most plants is just essentially a paperweight. And that goes with the lilies. They're super easy to grow. They like water changes. Just give them time. Don't disturb them. The more you disturb them or try moving them around, the less they'll be likely to take off for you. Jeff Kane says, oh my God, I found the red question mark on my phone. Sorry, I'm a little slow on the phone functions. Well, those red question marks definitely get my attention, that's for sure. Cheshire Pesher, that's quite the name. I don't know if I said it right, but I definitely tried my best. Hello, Lucas says, doing outside 40-gallon ponds with rice fish. Notice plants, hornwort, salvinia, and even duckweed is sometimes not prospering, even dying off. Too much light, lack of nutrients, thanks. So if they get a lot of water on top of them, that can actually kill them a lot. And then as well as too much light can cause issues for you as well, or too much heat. Then you get natural dying off of the material too. So if it's like really hot, a lot of sun, you're going to get a lot of leaves dying off to make room for new leaves and vice versa, which feeds a lot of algae. And then keep in mind splashing, if you got a filter or a waterfall or anything like that that keeps splashing on them, it will just absolutely destroy them. But it is hard to grow some plants, and a lot of plants actually, in direct full light. They do prefer more of an ambient light, especially our aquarium plants. Ceramic Fish says, hey, will you ship to a parcel depot next to Canada-U.S. border? I live 10 minutes from the border and would love to have some of your guppies. Thanks in advance. So I have heard about people doing this, and a lot of the club people do this up there. And as long as it's like a United States post office or somewhere that I can ship to in the United States that you can get to, and then get to it, then I mean, yeah, I could definitely do that. As long as I don't have to ship across the border. That's when the problem comes. And let's see. And it may be a little while till I get some of those guppies going. I've got a ton of babies. Like, all my tanks are just full of babies of them right now. And I moved the parents so they won't be eating them all. But hopefully sooner than later should be done. Dr. Reverend Ryan Bob Givens, glad to see you in here. Thank you so much for the $2 super chat. I really appreciate that. Says, been a while. Happy you're doing well in Florida. Yes, it has been a long while since I've seen you around. And I love it down here. Absolutely love it in Florida. It was a big journey and mountain to go through, and I'm still going through it to build back and everything. Because, I mean, it was pretty awesome at the old house. And I just could not do the winter, so... Even though it's been like 100 degrees here every freaking day, I've been out there still loving it. Working on my tan, even though I'm still pretty white. All right. My hair's crazy. It's been a long, long day. Let's see. Scroll for them question marks. Michael Kidd says one subject of space in Medeca. They were the first vertebrate to successfully breed in space. Or you mean shrimp or something? Because the Medeca is a fish. I don't know. Something bred out in space though? I don't know. See, what is that? Mark, I think Mark Bockwell. What? So, for some reason, my chat is like blending member chats and super chat messages together. I don't know what you posted up, Mark. Or is that just a bunch of symbols? What is that, Mark? Anyways, look cool. Ashes says, any tips on mold looking algae? Have it in a 20-gallon killie tank. Been doing water changes daily, but hot damn, man. Also, not using any chemicals either. Pretty natural. Thanks, man. So, if it looks like moldy algae, more than likely you're talking about cyanobacteria. So, it kind of looks like exactly moldy algae. And the best way to cure that is to get some general cure. It's one thing that I would recommend using a chemical on because, I mean, you can clean it up and try to take care of it, but it's a real pain in the butt to get rid of off of just natural maintenance. And since it is a bacteria, a general cure will help solve that problem. Just careful doing too big of water changes, and like if you have a filter, keep it dirty as well. That way you got enough beneficial bacteria as well. Dr. Reverend Ryan Bob Gibbons says, are you in Central Florida or closer to Tampa area? I go down to Tampa way every now and then. I'm about 3 hours north of Tampa. Hey Lucas, any ideas on how many Geophagus spini in a 4-foot 120 with some Rominos? A 4-footer, I'd do like a group of 6. I think that would be the perfect amount for that. Complain when too cold in Indiana, complain when too hot in Florida. Hey, I'm not complaining about too hot in Florida. I said I was still out there loving it. You know, that sun does get intense. I have found a nice shaded spot, so that helps. Philly Cheese Aquatic says, what are the common types of micro critters you can find in a natural aquarium? So usually you'll find your copiopods, which are kind of like your seed shrimp and stuff. And then you can find these little detritus worms, which are like tiny little thin hair-like worms that are kind of pinkish. And then you will find the, what are those? The cyclops, which those kind of flutter around in the water column. A lot of these will usually never be seen if you've got fish, but if you got shrimp is when you'll more than likely see a lot of these microorganisms. Like they'll be in the tanks with your fish. It's just the fish will eat pretty much any that are out and about, but they'll live in the cracks and crevices everywhere. And then, I mean, for the most part, those are usually the ones that you see. And underneath that, there's like Infusoria, Paramecium, and other types of critters. Some people get Daphne, and there's Planaria, other different types of worms. I don't know all the names for. Jared L. says, went to the river the other day to gather sand, mud, and debris. Excited to set up my 10-gallon ecosystem. Couldn't find aquatic plants, though. Well, that's awesome. Should be interesting what you see from and get from the river. Usually, I wouldn't recommend grabbing that stuff from like the wet part of the river. Like you can grab from more of the taller, dry part is a little better to grab from. But I mean, you can. It's just you got to be careful what you introduce by doing that. But it also depends on the type of tank you're keeping. I mean, when I was a kid, that's how we used to always do it. And I mean, you may get leeches or something here and there, but usually isn't anything too crazy that you get out of it. And it definitely looks more natural and different style. That's what's cool about this hobby is there's so many ways to keep tanks as a visual perspective. Let's see. Scroll. Joyce Brown says, "Hi Lucas, how often is it necessary to add new bloodlines to shell dweller colonies? I have a large group of Neolamprologus similis and wanted to get your thoughts." This is why I always keep a couple groups of any of those type of like smaller cichlids or really any fish. Is that way you can breed some out and then mix them and blend them later down the road. But I would say every couple of years, really. That way you don't get too much inbreeding going on. Joe MTL says, "What would happen if a orange willy shrimp with my red cherry shrimp? Would the offspring be shades of red or be wild type?" So that all kind of really depends. Not all will be the same, and they will just throw whatever out depending on the lineage of that red cherry shrimp and the lineage of the orange really and what's within it. And since the orange and red genes are more dominant when it comes to passing down genes naturally, you may get quite a bit of orange reds out of it. You may get some wild types because it's just like that gene that'll come out. But that all depends on the line on how many you may get from it. So you'll actually get a variety of shrimp from it. I mean, heck, you could even get a orange really out of it, or a red really, orange really, or something weird like that to come out of them. Karen Frietas. I don't know. I think, did I say that right? I don't know, Karen. Sorry if I didn't. Bought some no planaria. Anyone want to talk about controlling that stuff? I don't know. I've never actually used the no planaria. I always just used the fenbendazole, the powder form. And I don't know if it comes out as a lot or something. It should have the directions on there. I've never actually used it though. And yes, be careful with the no planaria because it can kill snails if you have your special loved snails. And it's good to do like when you're dosing those medications. So what will happen is it will kill, say, the worms, because that's what you're trying to take care of. And if there's a lot of them in there, that dead, decaying material can create either ammonia spike or spikes of like bad bacteria and all kinds of other stuff. And that's why they recommend doing your water changes after a certain period of using it. That way you can freshen the tank back out. Give it a little flush. Ashes says, "Thanks, Lucas. To clarify, the mold algae is white, so not sure about general cure. Would that still work? Thank you." Okay, so if it's white, I was thinking green since algae is green. But if it is white, I don't know if you've ever seen what the white biofilm fungusy stuff looks like coming out of driftwood. And it can attach the rocks as well. I've seen it happen. Matter of fact, it's in, or was in some of my tanks. But the fish just actually eat it. If you got fish in there and or shrimp in there, And if it's coming off like driftwood, that's actually kind of a certain biofilm that happens often with that stuff. And you could either manually remove what you want or can, and then eventually it'll just fade out. Same with after the fish or shrimp eat it all, it'll fade out. It kind of cycles. It cycles once, and usually often in driftwood. So I don't know if you've got a new piece of driftwood in there or something that could be causing that. And if it's not from that, then it could be white fungus mold looking from overfeeding. So fungus food, and this can actually kill fish and shrimp faster than anything, is decaying, moldy, white, nasty food that has encrusted on the bottom and nothing's really eating it besides that mold. And if that stuff does get eaten by the fish and or shrimp, then it can cause some really bad internal problems. Jaden Brown, it's kind of like getting food sickness and stuff, to the point like it could kill you. Jaden Brown says, have you ever had any luck getting a black rice fish to breed yet? Easy Coast shops have a hard time getting that color. So they haven't been as prolific as my platinums have. My platinums, for some reason, they're just ridiculous. But I always throw them into like my newer tanks, so they're eating all the like biofilm scum stuff that first comes off of my tanks, because a lot of it is created from my no filter, my sand from my yard, just proteins and stuff will gather up the top. So I think them eating off that a lot, and or I'll throw them into algae tanks. That always promotes a lot of breeding out of them. I haven't quite done that with the black rice fish yet, and that's because I'm still getting organized here, but I will definitely be testing that here in the future. And Liquid Zoo OnlyFans, thank you so much for the $1 super chat. I appreciate that. And you run the Fish Fam link, right? I thought, but maybe not. I don't know. Austin Allen says, Lucas, where can we get your rainbows from? So my rainbows right now, I don't have a whole lot on my website. I'm working on organizing everything to breed more rainbows, which is what I'm working on this week and next week and week after. And so I mean, really, I don't have a whole lot of them available. I know in my last video I showed that I was selling them, and they pretty much already sold, or well, they did already also. So I've got tiny fry that come from when I moved them out, but they're still so small. Eventually, I'll be able to offer more for you guys. It's just getting there. It's the journey. Philly Cheese Aquatic says, are red eye sockets on shrimp a dominant trait? It depends on what shrimp, but not usually. They tend to be black. If you're talking about the eyeball, if you're talking about the socket, I don't know. Actual socket of it, the color. Let's see. You usually pronounce it better. Oh, I'm sorry, Karen. Yeah, sometimes it's like, oh, do I pronounce it this way or do I pronounce it that way? And then you just like try to hit 50-50. I do what I can. Do what I can. Matt Batcher says, white biofilm. I have had some mold recently on a bone and some leaves. I sucked most out of the rest, went away. On a bone? Did you really mean to type bone? I don't know. White biofilm had some mold. It could be the same thing that I mentioned as far as like the food. Or into the driftwood. If you're here for that, we kind of already talked about all that stuff. Let's see. Geophagus says, do you think it is worth going tomorrow if I don't really need hardware type items? They've actually got a lot of livestock. So he's talking about the club swap. And I would say it's really up to you. I would say if you haven't been to the swap, you'd probably like it more too, because it's not, I don't know. You don't have to sit there and, I don't know. I think if you haven't experienced, you should at least experience it. Because there's a little bit of everything at the swap. Which I won't be able to make it. I've got way too much to do around here. Like I mentioned, I put in like 120 hours this last week at least. It's been crazy. It's just been nothing but get a little sleep and work and get a little sleep and work. I'm going to be so excited because I saved myself like 2 weeks of worth. 2 weeks worth of work this week. Which is just awesome. And that's what keeps me motivated. Lady Diane, thank you so much for the $10 super chat. Super appreciate that. Lady Diane says, check out the sale at LRB's. Good sales over there. Well, thank you. I really, 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 really do appreciate that, Lady Diane. We got sales every day. Get them while they're hot. Get them while they're hot. Because, I mean, I do grow all this stuff here in my fish room. I don't flip or import or do anything like that. Everything's all homegrown, healthy stuff. There may not be a whole lot on there, but there's quite a bit on there. And there's some stuff on sale. Well, thank you for reminding people, Lady Diane. And Thomas G, thank you so much for gifting those memberships out. Really appreciate that. I know a lot of people have been having issues on finding the join button for the membership and have been asking me. So for you to gift them is really great. And as far as the join button, I think on the video, there should be underneath where there's a join button and you hit that and it'll give you like membership options. And then I believe I have something in the description for people on mobile. I don't know if it does that on mobile or not. YouTube doesn't make it easy to find that stuff. MK Aquatic says, hey Lucas, what's the best way to keep fry alive? I got some pygmy corridors starting to hatch. No predators in the tank. I got rock piles and lots of plants. Any tips? I mean, I would say you're on the right track. Do your normal water changes. Don't do anything excessive. And just keep it natural and steady and make sure that they get some food, but not too much food, you know, all that normal kind of stuff that you would normally do for fish. And that'll keep you going. I mean, that's how I rock and roll this whole fish room. Chris Trapp says, Lucas, does your ground freeze? Have you considered digging a in-ground breeding pond? So I have been thinking about a lot of ponds, a lot of just, man, I know Walmart, those swimming pools ain't really that expensive. But a lot of whatever I put outside, I want to be covered. And I do plan on doing some in-ground ponds. That's just my nature. If you remember from my last house, I loved doing in-ground ponds, even where it did freeze. But I'm thinking if I did a greenhouse and in-ground breeding pond here in Florida where I'm at, and there's a greenhouse over it, like it got cold enough to where the ground froze a little bit, but not like solid freeze. It was only like a freeze for a few days. So I think the greenhouse could outmaneuver any of that. Especially if I insulated up underneath it too. I've got ideas and plans for all kinds of stuff to do out there, but I don't know. I'm definitely going to plan on doing bigger systems. Once I've got everything like this fry rack going on into this fish room, it's going to give me a lot of what I need and been needing for a long, 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 long time. So everything else will be like excessively extra and awesome. Which is exciting. Henry Figaro says, how do you get your rainbow fish to breed? I just feed them multiple times a day. Usually helps. If you can feed them once or twice, feed them at night. Often they'll be full enough that they won't predate on their young as much. And really what they'll do is you make sure you got plants. They'll throw and scatter their eggs on plants. You could do spawning mops if you want to do it that way, where you could target breed them and actually collect the mops and their eggs. Excuse me, they're egg scatterers, but their eggs are sticky, so they'll stick all over the plant and or yarn spawning mop, and you can either move the plants out, move the mop out, and or move the parents out. So you could either choose to keep the parents in, raise up the babies that way, or choose to take the parents out and then the babies will just come out naturally, and then that new tank or that tank where the parents were is the new nursery tank. And then you just put the parents into the next tank. And if you've got 3 tanks, you can constantly just rotate. Boom, boom, boom. Like parents in this one, babies in that one. Parents in this one, babies in that one. And you can just keep it going like crazy. And they're not really hard to breed. And all rainbows pretty much breed alike. Oh, he did mean to say bone. Matt Batcher says, I had extra bones for my dog. I bought a bunch because they were $1 in NC and like $6 here, but she quit messing with them and they got moldy. I figured they could add calcium. Did you clean them off first? Because I know like that bone marrow can be something that mold and stuff could feed off of. Gardaki's Playground says, LRB, are you a Colts fan? So I used to be a Colts fan. I mean, football's all right. Like, I played sports. I played football. I played basketball. I ran track. I played baseball. I did all that stuff growing up as a kid. And I don't know. I'm not as into sports. Haven't been that much into sports for a long time. I'm into fish tanks and doing all this stuff and making YouTube videos for you guys. So I don't have a whole lot of time to follow all that. I don't know, it gets repetitive after a while. Jaden Brown says, do you ever have issues with Hydra? How do you get rid of them? So you can get rid of them with the no planaria or fenbendazole. The same technique as you would go about with getting rid of any of those. So as far as the dosage for no planaria, I think they have the directions on it. But if you want to use fenbendazole, you can get this dog dewormer, which is Pancure C dog dewormer, and then you will dose 0.1 grams per 10 gallons. And then you'll want to water change 25% after 72 hours. And then repeat that until your Hydra's gone. And some Hydra will die from the first or second, but some it can take a third or fourth to actually kill the Hydra, because not all Hydra is the same. There are different types of Hydras. Fish can actually eat Hydra too if you got a big enough fish. Like guppies and mollies and fish like that, they're awesome at cleaning up Hydra and planaria and whatnot. Brandy Rutledge, thank you so much for the $2 super chat. Really appreciate that, Brandy. And the support says, got my scrimps. Thanks. Well, thank you so much for the support and orders. And I still haven't forgot about your email. I just really just have not been taking the time for anything else besides building. Like, hardly been taking enough time to eat for myself. Just because I want to get this done so bad. So bad. Because I know things are going to be, it's going to free a lot of pressure and time off of me once it gets done. I'm trying. It's not an easy task putting up 80 aquariums by yourself. Just really getting it all prepped to do so. Jessica Hussey, thank you so much for the $10 super chat. I really appreciate that. Jessica says, any tips on getting Otocinclus to eat prepared food? The best thing, I mean, honestly, what'll end up happening is they'll just finally get to a point where they have no choice but to start eating the prepared food. So I've had many fish. So with Killifish, a lot of the breeders actually feed them a lot of live food. So it could be hard for me to transition them. And it will take them a couple days or a few days for them to actually start eating the tetracolored tropical granules. But eventually they will. They'll be like, oh, is this food? It's not moving around. I don't know. And then eventually they'll be hungry enough to try it out. And then they'll be like, oh, I can eat that. And then it's fine. So it's kind of the same situation on really getting any kind of picky fish to eat food. And it does help if you can add some like live food while you're adding the processed food as well. That way they can correlate them together, which can also help. Let's see. And for Otocinclus, it's really good to have some driftwood in there with them. I think a big key to a healthy Otocinclus is having some sort of driftwood, just for them to graze on, because that driftwood will have biofilm on them, and I'm pretty sure they eat some of like the decaying material off of driftwood. So if it's a softer driftwood, even better. Or have some botanicals like leaf in there, like the Indian almond leaves are awesome natural grazing food source for them. Then I would give them something like a granule or a pellet type of food to eat off of. With protein. They like their protein. Ricky Ranchu says, for egg scatters, how big are the rocks in the rock piles? Do these cover the whole tank? So it depends on which fish you're trying to breed, would be depending on the rock pile size, as far as what size of rocks you use for it. So if you're breeding tetras, you don't want to use like a 4-inch rock where they can actually get into the cracks and crevices and whatnot. You'd want to use a smaller rock, like a 1-inch, 2-inch max, for something like tetras and stuff. But if you're trying to breed these barbs, which are a lot bigger, then you can use like the 3 and 4-inch rocks that have bigger cracks and crevices, and for the juveniles to grow out of. So you want to think about that when creating your rock piles. And then as tall as you want to breed them up or build them up, I would say at least 6 inches for good coverage. And if you want to go more, the better. And then just be careful about your food that can get into them. Try not to feed over the rock pile unless unless you know there's a lot or some babies or some shrimp in there to clean it up, and or snails. Big reason why I keep snails and shrimp and stuff in those sorts of situations would to clean up the food that may get in there that doesn't get eaten, so it doesn't rot and it doesn't cause fungus towards eggs and whatnot. So try to feed away from your rock piles as well. Real important. Let's see. A microworm for pygmy Cory. Yeah, microworms is a good choice for pygmy Cory. You do want to be careful when using microworms that your fish do actually eat the microworms, because if not, then they can funk your water up if you're not careful. But if you're doing normal maintenance, it shouldn't ever be an issue. Scroll. Geophagus says, LRB Aquatics, I should stay home and try and get something done then. I have empty tanks. I need to set up pond stuff getting eaten. 18 20 gallon, 12 40 gallons, 14 10 gallons, 12 20 gallons, 3 75 gallons, 4 5 gallons, and probably others. You got me with that red question mark, but yeah, I would say, I mean, you got plenty to do. It's your time. Use it wisely, because, you know, it's not always promised. So use your time how you need to. I mean, that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to stay here to get things done. I'm going to be painting, and then hopefully, I got to move everything that's off in this corner, which I don't know. Some of you guys may know what I'm talking about, but it's bananas over there. All the stuff that's over there. Oh, it's going to be a pain. That's actually what I got to do tonight, and try to get a members video edited tonight. I don't know, man. It's going to be rough. Okay, but anyways, Henry Figueroa says, do you need osmosis water to hatch killifish eggs? What happens if you leave the eggs in the same tank the parents were in? So sometimes they can hatch that way. It's just the success rate tends to be not as much, and it depends on the killie too. So Amphisemians, Rivulis, they're a little easier to breed within the same tank with the parents in. And like the Fundulopanchax and some other types, they can really need that dry peat method to have a better success rate out of it. Which, I mean, still, I have seen those hatch out, but it's not usually as well as a rate. But the osmosis water, I think, is very, very necessary, because the softness of it allows that acidity to break down the egg capsule for the killies to actually hatch out. That's why even in the Amphisemians are the peat spawners, the ones that you actually put the peat moss in a container, and then they will go and spawn the eggs in there. They will naturally get that acidity from all that peat moss. So it is kind of important. And osmosis water is pretty easy to get these days, or distilled water, or even rainwater. I know I'm moving this thing around. I just can't help it. My arm is so... Oh, man, I don't know if you guys can hear that, but man, they're just cracking like crazy. My arms are done. They're toast. Let's see. Aquatic Moose says, is it possible that pseudomodules will lay eggs in Luigia, or do I need something more like a spawning mop, water hyacinth or something? So with a lot of the fish, like rainbow fish and stuff, when you're breeding them and spawning them on something other than a spawning mop, you'll more than likely never see the eggs, or it may be really hard to see the eggs. So that's why I will usually keep them in a tank for like 3 weeks, 4 weeks, maybe 2 months. And then I'll pull them out, and then babies just happen. And that's a fairly easy way to breed rainbow fish. But if you wanted to like actually target breed them and try to get like a more directed number out of spawning them, then you would want to use like a mop. And even still, it can be hard to see the eggs on the mops unless they're eyed up. The clear ones are really hard to see. You pull them out though, it's a little easier to see on a dry spawning mop than a wet spawning mop. Matt Batcher says Otocinclus not eating prepared food. He could be eating something else. So a lot of things with the Otocinclus is their gut biomes, and a lot of people will freak out if they're not eating and think that there's a problem. But usually what'll happen is that new tank that they go in is loaded with biofilm all over the rock, all over the glass, all over driftwood, whatever. And the Otocinclus could be eating off that stuff. Something to think about. Then we try to overfeed, and then that's when problems happen. And if they eat rotten food and then they're not eating, then that's a whole different story. Let's see. Oh, come on, Finger. Crazy Aquarium guy, thank you so much for becoming a member. I appreciate that, Crazy Aquarium guy. Him and I were supposed to do a live at some point, but my time has not been the best as far as availability. Soon, though, soon. I keep saying that, and I mean it. I'm working on it. Chris Resecker says, no questions, let's feed the pond. We could probably do that. Why not? Why not? Rostan says 2000, or Rostan 2006 says, I'm trying to breed Pseudomagula luminatus in a container with a spawning mob. Do you recommend I put substrate in my breeding tanks instead of having it bare? So you do want some kind of, if you want to do it bare, at least paint the bottom of it. The only reason why I would recommend substrate or something like that is you do not want the reflection bouncing off to where it makes them feel uncomfortable, and or light shining through from the bottom as well. It's a comfortability thing for them, because anytime you can make them more comfortable, the more likely they're going to breed for you. But you don't have to have substrate in there. Just make sure that it's not reflective or just all lit up. Aquatics says, having trouble breeding my Cories and Tetras. I have false Julies, salt and pepper orange Venezuela Cory, and purpose Cories. Any tips? Also have Ember Silver tips and Congos. So for the Cories, they can need triggering, so especially like the pepper and the false Julies and or Julies, they like that cold water change. So if you can get some cold water into their tank, do like a 50%, like a big water change, 50% with that cold water, to where it's really cold. It'll trigger them to start breeding for you. And with the Tetras, though, they won't like that. So try not to do that so much with the Tetras in there. I don't know. Maybe they would. The Congos probably wouldn't. But the Silver Tips and Embers might not have so much of an issue with it. And then with them, that's all. Getting the eggs is the hard part with the Tetras. And there's a few ways to do that, where you can create false bottoms with mesh and or rock piles, and then playing musical fish with the adults. But those tend to prefer, the Tetras especially prefer dark tanks. Try to keep the tank dark, and most Tetras will breed in that. Pile Aquatic says, I use hard water to breed my killifish. Do you use it to hatch your killifish as well? Because where I lived, and I tried to do it with hard water, which, I mean, there's different levels of hard water. Some is harder than others. Ours was super hard, so ours was 400, 500 TDS, and it did not work as well. But if you're floating at like 300, 200 maybe, and you can still get some acidity with hard water. Like say you get hard and soft water. It's not uncommon for water to be hard and soft on different spectrums too. Matter of fact, I've got hard soft water here. Our TDS is only like 180, but there's tons of mineralization in it from all the lime rock around me. But there's still a lot of acidity in it. So it helps break down the mineralization. And you can tell on how and if you have that type of water by if your TDS starts dropping over time. It'll tell you, oh, I've got some acidity in here. All right, I'm gonna hop you guys off here. Actually, no, let me put you back on this thing. We'll feed the pond real quick before we hop off here. We'll see how that does. It's been a while since we got up. Boom. And done that. Get the old granules. Oh, the light's not even on. Well, that's going to be a very anti-dramatic or climatic. Well, dang. And they're already, I'm not going to feed them after the lights come on. Here, we can feed the barbs, though. Their lights on. They're just as fun. Hopefully we don't lose the internet. But I appreciate you all watching. Thank you so much for hanging out. Are you guys hungry? These guys are always hungry. They're always ready for an extra meal. They know that it's close to bedtime, though, so they're skeptical of me. They're like, why is this guy here trying to feed us this late? Is he going to trick us? Is he going to try to move us? Because they don't forget. They don't forget. Oh, you see the little juveniles there on the side? Where's my finger? Oh, there. I need to get them out. Yum, yum, yum. Splash zone. Oh, man. Well, here's a sneak peek. This is what I got to do tonight. I've got to move all this stuff. I got to get this cleared out so I can finish building stuff. It's gonna be a long night. It's gonna be a long, long night. But it's gonna get done. Because I'm not waiting for tomorrow. I can't always wait for tomorrow. Keep waiting for tomorrow, it'll never get done. And you know what? I may be tired, I may be sore right now. But I'll heal up. Shoot, once this is done, I'll be so happy I won't feel any of that pain. You know it? So that's why I keep going. That's what keeps driving me to do it. And then I thank God every day I've got the energy, that I've got my legs and arms to do it. I think that's where a lot of people get lost. Especially like these days, there's so much going on, but really that attitude is in the gratitude. And if you could remember the gratitude that you have just to wake up and breathe each day, and that each day is a new day, and you can remind yourself of that little thing, it helps. It helps. Definitely helps. But anyways, I thank God for all you guys being here. All your guys' support, really, really appreciate it. And I hope you guys have a great weekend, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace. Have a good one. Do 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 do.